All right. Well, we're rocking and rolling. So, without further ado, I am going to welcome us to another episode of the Kanika Lifestyle Podcast. It is Monday. Welcome to a new week, everybody. And I am joined today by my lovely co-host and my beautiful wife, and of course, my podcasting partner, Nika. Good afternoon, Nika.
Hello, Katie. Hello, world. And hello to our new and returning listeners. Today, I wanted to talk to you about the Carnivoire Month.
Carnivoire Month. Oh, boy. You're going to make me hungry.
Oh, I'm sorry. But at the same time, it's good for you to...
It's good that we waited to do the podcast later today, maybe, because, I think we're going to be able to start food pretty much right after we're done knocking this episode out.
Well, we only eat once a day.
We do.
Whether it is now or a little later, it really doesn't matter. It's not like we get hungry.
And it was quite a journey to get to eating once a day that all began roughly 5 years ago, pre-COVID, right before COVID started in March of 2020.
You would think it would have been the other way around.
Yeah. But it wasn't. In December of 2019, and right around that time period, Nika and I began our journey into, well, at the time it was going and leaning into more of a high-fat diet and cutting out as much carbs as we can. I still remember eating bread during this time, but over time we basically became ketogenic in the sense that we followed the keto sort of high protein, high fat, low carb lifestyle, but we don't measure our ketones or anything like that. We just kind of follow the lifestyle. And we also fast. We also do intermittent fasting with this. So this leads us to basically eating for 2 hours or so every day and shutting down for 22.
It has been a journey. However, I would say going together into this makes things 10 times easier and keeps you accountable. Where if you go by yourself, you can come up with cheat days, not feel like doing it. There are excuses. We are great at making up excuses for anything, whether that's food, podcasting, life in general. Mm-hmm. We are prone to procrastination as humans, and we like to make excuses for why we're not doing stuff. So
absolutely.
Being accountable actually helps.
What's funny is I was writing down some notes for this podcast, and I wrote the key to our success. And underneath it, I wrote doing it together. Yeah. That was the key to our success was, and at the time, like I weighed roughly 240 pounds. I'm 5'10", by the way. Today, I weigh about 170 pounds. So I took off about 70 pounds from there. I had been as high as 250, 261. I don't know who's counting, but at the time that we were doing this, I remember I was like probably in the 240, 245 range.
Yeah, you were. And you've been yo-yo dieting since I have known you. It's been up and down, up and down.
It would always hover from like 210 to 240, somewhere in that area, mostly like hovering around 220, 225.
We have been doing this for over 5 years. Mm-hmm. It has been slow at the beginning because there is always a little bit of a resistance. You've been integrated into this way of eating since we were kids, of standard American diet.
The sad diet.
The sad diet.
And it really is. It really does not promote a healthy lifestyle. And that is at the core of why we changed and why we wanted to get away from it, is like to start treating food as the most essential medicine for your body on a daily basis. And it is the first line of defense medicine for your body. And if you eat a certain way, you can get like almost overdoses of those nutrients, if you will, in a good way. You can really change the whole makeup of your energy system in your body. You can train your body. Everyone says you need carbohydrates for energy, but this is a fallacy. This is something that is not known throughout like mainstream discussions about food and energy.
Carbs are not essential.
Carbs are not essential energy.
Exactly.
You can use fat as fuel for your energy.
And it's a lot cleaner fuel, and it's a lot more sustainable.
Why would you say that is?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, fat contains a lot more calories for the body to burn versus carbs. So when you eat a lot of fat, you feel satiated, and then good fat comes with protein. So when you eat this way, your body takes longer to digest, therefore making you satiated a lot longer. As you know, when you eat carbs, you got to refuel your body every couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where you have the snacking, 6 meals a day, including snacking.
Mm-hmm.
So your day is filled with constant eating. The other way around is, like we just said, we eat only once a day for hour, 2 hours, and we splurge. We eat a lot of calories if you wanted to break it down into the calorie myth. Because the calorie in, calorie out is a myth.
It is.
Your body doesn't operate like this. No 2 calories are the same.
You've always told me this, and people will argue with you until you're purple in the face about this, but I have come to decide that it's true because I live it, you know. But you hit on a lot of great points here, and one of the things I wanted to say is, even though we eat in this like 2-hour window, and right now, like 5 years ago when we started, it was more of a 10-hour window.
Oh, yes.
And we did decide to start at 10 hours. So kind of before that, we called ourselves day-long grazers, basically. You know, like we kind of woke up and everyone was always like, well, you got to eat breakfast right away. Like and we would do that. Like within a half an hour of waking up, I feel like I ate breakfast, usually like an oatmeal, but sometimes some sausage and Eggos maybe, or something like that.
Some waffles, cereal, just standard American breakfast food.
Yep, orange juice maybe, but with vitamins. I was a big orange juice fan. I don't drink any fruit juices anymore because they just have too much sugar in them, hands down. I would never recommend anybody drink any fruit juices ever again.
Well, you should technically eat your calories, not drink your calories.
Yes, another wise piece of advice, you know, water and certain things like Zevia, for example. I do love my bubbles. But even sparkling water in general is calorie-free. You don't drink any calories in that instance.
We are not talking about diet pop. We're talking mostly like sparkling water or seltzer
Yes.
water.
The reason why you cannot drink diet pops are because of the fact that they contain ingredients that still will spike your blood sugar.
Yes.
It's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap.
It is a trap. And they use different names for sugar nowadays. So you think you're getting sugar-free drink, but really you're not.
Yeah. So we started at 10 hours and we would just kind of slowly push we call it the feeding window. We would slowly push back the feeding window. And we finally landed on this point, I think, where we became flexible and we can generally eat whenever we want during the day. We've eaten as late as like 7:30, 8 o'clock some days, but it was really extreme when we'd been like driving or traveling a lot in those days. We also had times where we would eat a little earlier sometimes just because we were like, oh, it's cold and we're hungry today. We feel cold and we might eat 3 hours that day or something and just spread it out a little bit longer. But for the most part, we have become, you know, into this 90 to 120 minute window. And it generally happens in the late afternoon. You know, like there's this saying that you should eat when the sun goes down, kind of.
Yes, we are very in tune with circadian rhythm.
Okay, explain what that is for people.
It's your body's natural rhythm of functions,
Okay.
of your hormonal functions. So when you wake up in the morning without the alarm clock, your body wakes up.
Mhm.
That's your hormones waking up, telling you to get up.
Absolutely.
When you feel the hunger pangs, that's your body telling you, I might be hungry.
This is a time when you will also start to feel like a Charlie horse or a cramp in your body leg, like feeling water deprivation. It probably is a sign your body's hydrated, or you did some kind of movement recently that you hadn't done in a while, maybe like squats or something like that. But this is often the time. I'm a runner, and I also like will be bad about drinking water at night sometimes, and I'll get a Charlie horse in the morning, and it sucks. But that is part of why you get that Charlie horse at that hour. If you look at the clock, 99 times out of 100, when you get a Charlie horse, it's at like 4 to 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it's your body waking up, and when your body is waking up, your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, it gets activated. And not because you're stressed, it's because your body needs to wake up. It was a stressor on your body to wake up.
Of course, everything is a stressor.
Fasting is a stressor.
Sure.
But those are good stressors. This is not chronic stress. We're talking about something that happens and is gone within a couple minutes.
100%. 100%. But you also were talking about kind of what we eat there, and like, I don't remember exactly when we cut out like bread and stuff permanently and things like that.
It was a gradual process.
It was gradual, and I don't.
If anybody wants to try this kind of eating, I would recommend going gradually, not jumping in. You will hit the cravings. You will hit the keto flu. You might hit other unpleasant markers.
Also, we did it over a 6-month period, I think, when we got to that window. And a lot of it was because of COVID, I think, and having this, like, all of a sudden this change where work was being done at home on a regular basis, and feeling like you had more control over all the food that you were putting in your body all day long is what really gave us that initial, I think, boost to get over this hump and really change our lifestyle. I was going running in the streets of California and Los Angeles. It was deserted out there, though. You know, people were not outside and about or anything. Yeah, there were people driving and stuff, but it nothing like it was and now is, as things sort of get back to normal. And there is no new normal after COVID, obviously. But anyways, I feel like that was a helpful thing that sort of happened. And we had already started before that. So we were kind of primed to take this to the next level. And I also noticed at some point I was losing weight finally. I stepped on the scale one day and it was like 208. And I was like, whoa, I'm under 210. Like, and I had, like I said, been like 240, 245 when I started. And that was like eye-opening. And that's around the time I think I started running again, because I felt like I had this opportunity that I didn't know if I was going to have again. I was 38, 39 years old, and I was like, holy crap. And I think I remember holding up my birthday cake. I think I remember I was about 180 at that time when I would go on to lose even more weight.
Yeah, I think you started running because you felt more motivated. You saw the scale go down and you thought, hey, you know what? I can do this now and I can continue and maybe lose more.
I think it's ironic though, because I think people look at exercise as how you lose weight. But for me, it was the food that helped me lose weight first. And then I got the idea like, oh, I should exercise from that. And it's maybe that sounds backwards to people or what, but I guess I would go through phases of exercising just like I would yo-yo, and they didn't necessarily correspond with each other. I think they were more a result of like frustration. I would always get to a point and then plateau with exercising where it was like, yeah, pounds were coming off and then they weren't. And then the pounds were coming off and then they weren't. And a lot of it was because of food. And
yes. You bought into this whole concept that by exercising, you're going to lose weight.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you lose weight in the kitchen.
Around the time I turned 30, which is like right before I met you, is when I first realized I had done a lot of like running and weightlifting, and I had gotten down to 203, and that was like one of the biggest accomplishments of my adult life. And again, yet I plateaued at that point, and that was the lowest I think I ever got down to. And what I want to flash forward to here is like, this was, now I'm like 38, 39, so almost a decade later, and I had barely done any like running or exercising at this point, and all of a sudden I had like dropped 30 pounds or more, and it was noticeable, and like it was worth stepping on the scale and taking a look, and like clothes were starting to fit weird and better, and all these things. I would always tell you I had an odd shape, and like clothes don't fit me right because of where I'm heavy and blah blah blah, and I hated it. it was interesting. At this point, I started exercising, and before you know it, I blew past 200. Like, and it became a distant memory. It's something that I thought was never going to be achievable in my lifetime became a distant memory, and it kept going and going and going, and eventually it stopped around 165, 170, and that's where I hover around these days, unless I eat too much peanut butter for a few days, and then we cut it out again.
Yes, that is also true. You found your ideal weight. Like your body stopped at certain weight because that's where it's supposed to be.
5'10", 170. That's about right.
Exactly.
And when you look at the Corbin Carrolls and some baseball players with that physique, that's about their weight.
Exactly. And you don't spend time at the gym. You don't go and lift weights. Your body naturally defines your muscle based on what you eat.
I go through phases of like push-ups and stuff, but I do enjoy running more. It's not, I don't hide that.
Right.
But I do want to develop more of a like non-weight room muscular training with like push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and like I'm into that stuff. But I need to, my next goal is to like recommit myself to that stuff. As you get older, as you know, your muscle starts to decline. It's just natural, and that's because you stop producing as much testosterone, and things just slow down gradually. But while I have this opportunity still, much like I feel like when I was losing this weight 5 years ago and seeing the opportunity in front of me, now I feel like I need to take this body and make it into a better muscle frame. So things like I still slouch sometimes, I think, and I need to have better posture. And this is all tied into, I think, doing a little bit more of that muscular training for yourself.
You do, because when you gain muscles, it gives the support to your skeleton structure all over.
100%.
And when you do get older, your muscle gains are not as dominant. You still can gain weight. I mean, muscles, not weight, but you might gain weight because muscles weigh more than fat.
100%. So, yeah, this has been like a fun little trip down memory lane. And I kind of want to bring it back full circle to where we started about like the true key to this success was doing this together, because you just can't have the mixtures around each other. You're better about it than I was. I remember one thing I ate a lot of was craisins from like Trader Joe's during that initial transition period. And now I don't even eat them. And if I were to eat one, I would be like, oh my gosh, that is so sweet. Like, get it away from me.
Another thing worth mentioning, the taste buds. How much have they changed?
The taste buds have changed so much, especially I would argue more for you. And because I think it's funny, I still find it humorous that you almost drool over red meat. I don't mean you literally drool, but like I know how much you crave it now, and especially like a medium steak. I know how much you want it. I can see you right now. You're like, oh, you're making me hungry. And yeah, I think that's hilarious, because there was a time when we would, have gone to a steakhouse for dinner, and you would have been easily wanting fish, and you wouldn't have touched my steak.
Or I want it well done, because that's what I thought was the best.
For sure. And burgers, like you liked a hamburger, or a cheeseburger, but you didn't necessarily want it pink in the middle, whereas now you order it that way from me, the Grillmeister. And that's another thing I like about our dynamic too, is we do the cooking together as much as we can when it's not windy. It is a high wind day here. The Santa Ana winds, as everyone knows, are causing the horrible LA fires, and we're luckily out of harm's way, but we are still feeling the effects of them here in the Southwest. But it might not be a good grill day today, unfortunately,
it might not,
as I'm looking outside. But I do love that we are able to do so much of this journey together. We eat together every day. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of families can say that, and I appreciate that. We prepare the food together. You do a lot more than I do, but I do like my role that I play, and it makes me feel good about it.
And we do look at food as a nutrient. We don't look at food as entertainment. And I know there's a lot of pushback when it comes to low carb or carnivore diet or lifestyle, that people say, oh, aren't you getting bored with all this meat that you eat? I say no. 100% no, because I know what it does to me and how it makes me feel. I know if I eat almonds today, I will have joint pains tomorrow.
Why is that? What is it in almonds that you now know makes you feel that way?
Well, almonds are very high in oxalates. And oxalates are those tiny little crystals, microscopic crystals that when they interact in your bloodstreams, they can cause kidney stones, joint pain, a lot of inflammation. It's a pro-inflammatory food, therefore causes pain in certain places.
And this is almonds, but also other nuts, right?
Almonds have the most. Spinach is another one, high oxalate, chocolate, potatoes. Those are foods that some would consider healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you strip it down and take it away, you will notice how much better your body feels.
And I want to clarify right now that we sometimes have almond flour cakes. We sometimes have Nika's famous fried potatoes.
We do, but I prepare my potatoes the traditional way. I peel them and I let them soak in water so they get all the starches out. They sit in the water for a lot longer. They get boiled. They get cooked properly. We don't use skins from potatoes at all. And it's not a daily thing. It happens occasionally. As far as the almond cake, yes, birthdays, all that stuff, you got to enjoy your life. So why not have a piece of cake? You just have to be mindful. That's all.
For sure. So I wanted to talk about some of the biggest changes that we've noticed throughout the course of this 5-year reflection. The obvious one is my weight loss, right? Like going from 240, 245 down to 165, 170 is a big jump. And I had never, ever broken through like this before in my adult life.
And you keep it off.
5 years later, yeah, I mean, well, 4.5, 4.75, or 4.25. I don't know how many. I lost track, and that's what's awesome. I got down to a certain weight, and I never really dipped below or above in my whole time of doing this.
You went from extra large sizes of clothing to small medium.
Yep.
That's how dramatic it is.
And I went from being like a size 38, 40 waist and pants to like a 30/32, depending on the brand.
Right.
And depending on the size, because sizes have shifted and moved to make people feel better about shopping. Like a small is now a medium. And a medium, what used to be a medium, is now a large. And they keep moving the goalposts without telling you, thinking like, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. I can keep eating that ice cream every night, or I can keep eating those Doritos and like all the other psychological traps out there, whether it's Taco Bell, McDonald's, Doritos, sugar. The people don't realize that most carbohydrates, including grains, including things that don't feel like it, pasta, are converted in the body into sugar. And then therefore they spike your blood sugar when you eat them. And this is like what causes onset diabetes to happen over time. And I was probably pre-diabetic or borderline diabetic, and now I don't have any issues.
You were very much borderline diabetic. You were right there. You weren't ready to get insulin yet.
I was right on the cusp.
Right. People don't think sugar is pasta or bread. They think sugar is just the sweet cakes, muffins, whatever else that you eat.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the case. Carbs are the baked goods, the processed flours that people use to make cakes, cookies.
Like fried chicken skin will become sugar in the bloodstream.
Well, if it's breaded, sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Like the breading is made of flour. The flour will turn into blood or sugar in the bloodstream. I do want to say we recognize that it tastes good, and we have used pork rinds now in place of like flour and breadcrumbs as a breading for like pork or different chicken in the air fryer and stuff. You can make little chicken nuggets, dip them in like some Sweet Baby Ray's keto barbecue sauce. I'm not saying you should do this every day, but there are ways you can incorporate the things that you miss into it.
You just have to be willing to experiment, because your body is gonna respond to different things different way. But if you go into this with open mind and flip the foot pyramid upside down and start using it as such, you will reap so much benefits.
I cannot even begin to list the benefits, but I would say the number one things for me outside of the weight loss are the joint pain. I had notoriously painful knee joints, which is gone. I had surgery on my left knee when I was a freshman in high school, and at a time when I weighed more than I do now, literally.
Well, somebody might say you don't feel it anymore because you lost the weight, and therefore you're not carrying so much weight around.
That does play a factor for sure, but I also would say that we have stopped using common sense.
Oh.
Why would you not think that the substance that you put into your body that turns into like a hot, slippery oil would cause your joints to hurt? Like, wouldn't you think logically that like the fat would help your joints feel better?
And we are talking animal fats. We're not talking about seed oils. That's a huge toxin for your body. So
yeah, please don't do that. We're just talking about fat from meat and tallow and butter, natural sources.
Absolutely.
And please don't go with anything processed or ultra processed in your diet. That's the first step you can make if you want to be healthy. If you want to start looking at food as total medicine for your body, is to shop along the edges of the store. There are a few things sprinkled within the aisles that are not necessarily going to hurt you, but overall, 80 to 90% of your food that you put into your body on a daily basis should come from those edges and not from the middle of the aisle.
I mean, we drink coffee, so we buy coffee that's in the middle of the aisle sometimes, but yeah.
Sure. But you also make a little like flatbread out of just eggs and cottage cheese that we eat too.
Yep.
And that's part of like our dessert sometimes when we have like a little peanut butter and or jelly on it, or ice cream, like a sugar-free ice cream.
The only processed item that we find in this household a lot is the Rebel ice cream. It's one thing that is, I don't want to say a crutch necessarily, but it is something that we both enjoy.
And it doesn't spike our blood sugar.
And it doesn't.
We've tested our blood sugar after eating like I would say a generous amount, with some peanut butter and jelly, both, and blood sugar is under 100, both of us.
After a huge meal, yeah, it doesn't.
Like an hour after, so we've given it the time that it needs to permeate and affect things, and yet no spike. And obviously when you're not gaining weight, you would tend to see this, Another big change I want to get into that's funny to me is smaller poops. I feel like because we eat less just overall, and the food is, this tells me a couple things that, are interesting. One is that I'm pooping less because the food that we're eating is being absorbed by my body more. And really, poop is waste. So when you're not pooping as much, you're not putting as much waste into your food supply.
Spot on. And
thank you.
Somebody's got that. Well, why you don't getting any fiber with your food?
No, but I know it's like, and everything we've learned about fiber is that it's a bulking agent.
It is.
And as somebody that used to be quite constipated when I was on the other end of the spectrum weight wise, when I was 80 pounds, 70 pounds heavier, boy, oh boy, can I just say, like, just try to go without fiber for a few months. And see what happens when you put more fat into your diet, and over time.
Did you grease your skin?
Enjoy exactly. Again, we're talking about common sense here. Like if fiber dries things out and bulks them up, why are we so fixated on this being necessary for good digestion? Like I don't get it.
It's a marketing scheme. Let's go back to the 80s where fiber was considered a waste product. It was not on anybody's radar for a menu item. It was a waste product. So
again, it's a response to a problem that used to not exist. And it's like they just keep doing it. It's like putting another pill after you go to the doctor nowadays, and they're like, here, you need to take this for your blood pressure. And then you start taking it, but you have a side effect. So they give you another one for the side effect. And then they give you another one for the side effect of that side effect. And before long, you're on like 5 or 6 pills, and you're keeping the big pharmaceutical industries employed and making big business.
And you still feel sick.
and you still feel sick.
Because none of those medications address the root cause of why you feel a certain way.
Food is medicine, and medicine is food. This is from the founder of modern medicine, Hippocrates.
Well,
And
no. This is a founder of medicine in general. Founder of a modern medicine is Rockefeller. That's why our medicine is based on the petroleum, not on natural remedies.
I agree. I feel like when it comes to like the body though, and like learning about how the body works, it's everything comes from like you're supposed to take a Hippocratic oath, like I feel like that's gone out the window. And even if people do still take it, which I've heard mixed things about, I never had to take one, like, okay, maybe you should have. But also like to just maybe reintroduce yourself to the basics that he taught. And I always hear people say like, oh, well, people died so young in that age. And it's a lot of it's from water and having bacteria in the water. It has nothing to do with the food. Like
Dirty life. I mean, listen to
mankind survived how many millions of years on this earth picking carcasses, blubber. Blubber is fat. It's not a ground food.
The big game hunters during the Ice Age or past Ice Age was killed off by humans. They killed the biggest animals, the fattiest animals, then they get stuck with the smaller ones. There was so many buffaloes over here that Indians used to live. They were considered their primary diet source.
Yeah.
And they lived till 100 years.
Yeah. That's one of the things we learned is about how many of them would live to be 100 years old compared to Americans around the turn of the century, which was like the last time that this data was available.
Oh, now they're not going to.
Yeah, at least like from a, completely wilderness living standpoint,
Right.
People living off the land were living to be way older than white colonialists, I guess, if that's what you want to call them back then. I want to change topics really quick and talk about like other changes and energy levels and things like that. I think one of the biggest changes for me is like I'm up usually around 5 a.m. every day now. Like I had trouble getting up. I was probably recovering from sugar addiction every day almost, like as a overdose of a drug.
You're not the only person that has mentioned that if you overload on sugar, people have a hard time getting up in the morning.
But again, we've just talked about how like sugar can come in the form of pasta and bread and cereal, oatmeal. We don't think about these things as necessarily being unhealthy in our diets, and yet here they are, causing your blood sugar to go up, and you just don't know what. By the time you come down, you're exhausted, even through your sleep.
When you eat standard American diet, blood sugar spikes never come down because you're refeeding it constantly. You eat one meal, 2 hours later, spikes is still up there and you're refeeding it. You're not letting it go down.
Definitely. I think you got to keep an eye on your blood sugar more than anything, right?
Well, yes. What is that blood sugar does when it goes up? It's oxidation.
But it's what begins to lead to fat storage.
Fat storage. That's
long-term fat storage is because of your body is fighting off sugar instead of burning fat. The reason why it's doing this is because you've elevated your blood sugar levels and insulin is coming in, trying to push that back down. And instead, the body cannot only do so many things at once. I think that's another thing we learned. It's like there's not like a machine in here going on where it's like, oh, we can do this over here and this at the same. No, there's like a symbiotic thing happening in here. And there's only so much energy to go around for that and for the work.
Right. And your body is very, very smart and it has to prioritize. So when you're eating something toxic like sugar, it has to prioritize to get rid of it as fast as it can. And the more you eat of it, the more insulin it pumps and the harder it works to get rid of it. So it's a common sense. Another common sense. If you eat constantly, your body will never rest.
Yep.
You turn off the car when you put it into garage, your body needs to rest. Sleep is one part, but also throughout the day, you don't need to be digesting all the time. When you start digesting, your mind is going into the digestive mode and everything that's happening after you eat, it makes you more sluggish because your brain is not functioning anymore. It's the stomach is working, or the organs are. That's why when you are fasting, you are a lot more focused. You are a lot more clear-minded.
When you eat every 2 hours, you're almost constantly thinking about food. As soon as you stop eating, you kind of start thinking about your next meal. What am I going to have in a couple hours? Like you're conditioned because of it. And I think if you try to just start spacing out the meals, you're going to fail because the food is engineered to make you keep eating it every couple hours. The way that you're mixing it, like, fruit and nuts.
That's a very good point. The
Like
food is engineered.
It's just designed, all these like little things that they teach you is just make, and that's one of the dangers, I think, of capitalism is when you want to make more money. How do you make more money? Well, you got to sell more food. What happens when the population isn't growing as fast enough as you can like make the product and sell more of it? Oh, we got to sell more of it to the same people in order to make more money. And that's when it becomes dangerous, I feel like, because everything about moderation and stuff goes out the window. It's a false argument. And we're really just getting further and further away from our ancestral diet that, like I said earlier, it survived how many millions of years on this earth without technology, without crops, without farming, basic levels of agriculture.
Well, we were hunters before we were farmers.
Hunters and gatherers, my friends. All right. Well, another change that I wanted to talk about was, I wanted to open it up and ask you a question. Was there anything that you feel is specific to being a woman that changed for you when you did this? Because I feel like you talk about like skin maybe, and like I guess that applies to me too. Like I had dry elbows and
Oh, yeah.
and shins sometimes, and then that just immediately went away. And again, logical fallacy, fat in the diet, liquid, lubricant. All of a sudden, joints working better, dry elbows gone. Like, fascinating.
It is.
It's amazing how that note. These are the things you notice. I just want to bring these things up as we go through all this because I don't want to leave anything missed. But I know we're kind of wrapping up here. I wanted to know if there's anything specific for women, like if you felt like, because I know hormone regulation is a big part of what happens when we start eating a high-fat, low-carb diet.
Absolutely is. And I am at the point in my life where I do go through a lot more hormonal changes. I'm 50 years old, so not to date myself, but I don't have any.
She looks 25, everybody. I promise. I don't need a new prescription either. Well, that's a funny transition, I think, because the one biggest change I think that we've encountered together in our life would be the bedroom. Life has changed quite significantly from where it was to where it is now, and it's just become a lot more healthy and frequent, and I think I've become a much more active participant. Is that the best way to put it?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
I give you a short answer to that.
I see. Yeah, you're keeping it real short. No, saving it for pillow talk later. I get it. Or should we call it the rise and shine talk? Because with that circadian rhythm comes a wake up, right, in the human body.
Yeah, every part of it.
Rise and shine, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. And don't eat
don't eat corn in general. It's not a healthy food.
Well, one day we might delve more into that taboo topic of our sex life. To put it out in the open. I don't think it's going to be today based on the 50 shades of red that Nika's turning right now as we have this conversation.
Do I need to set up an OnlyFans account?
Wow. Ooh. How much can she make, everybody? What's the going rate for a 25-year-old Polish girl these days?
I don't know.
$1,000 an hour? Better get busy, everybody. You can have rent done in like a few minutes and can be on with the rest of our month, huh? More podcasts, everybody. More yapping. Well, I think we've been yapping for quite a bit on this podcast, but boy, this turned out to be an actual, like, really fun reflection of our journey. And I think a really fitting conversation to celebrate Carnivoire Month this January, 5-year anniversary of being keto / intermittent fasting. Again, we eat a majority of our food as meat, eggs, steak, burgers, bacon, uncured, of course, sausages, uncured. But everything is coming.
We try to do uncured, but I would say bacon is unprocessed as it is. It's mostly cured and uncured, whatever. We do avoid processed meats like the deli stuff. We don't get into that, but that's still better probably than cornflakes. So,
Sure. You just don't know what they're putting in it. And I
right.
guess that's like, we try to eat foods that have like 4 to 5 ingredients total, if that's any help to anybody at all. When you look at the packaging, if you see a laundry list of ingredients, I might put it back on the shelf
And,
and move on.
and also the ingredients, you don't even know what it is. It's a chemical set.
Maybe we'll do a podcast about some of the things that you enjoy. Like one of the things that we buy, chocolate chips. It would be interesting to look at the comparison of the chocolate chips we buy and sort of pick at sometimes versus like the Nestle brand ones, which I'm sure have like a laundry list of ingredients on the back.
We should do a side-by-side little video about that.
Yeah, we can do a side-by-side comparison of like some peanut butters that we eat versus like Skippy and things like that. We eat Welch's jelly, but Welch's makes a natural GMO certified jelly that has literally 3-4 ingredients in it.
You mean non-GMO?
Non-GMO, yes, sorry. Listen to Nika, everybody.
Hey, yeah, but GMO certified.
Non-GMO certified is what I meant. And it has like 4 ingredients in it, including lemon juice concentrate is one of them. So, and literally on the grapes is the first ingredient, which is really rare because even in the strawberry one, sugar is the first ingredient. So it just shows you, but like 6 grams of sugar in a serving, I mean, this will hold you over when you get down to our level for like no problem. You'll not even feel it.
You don't even eat the damn serving. That's how little of that jelly we eat.
And it tastes super sweet. And that's
is.
what you get with the taste bud change. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, I really enjoyed this, Nika. You said some really great things on this episode as well, and I would highly recommend everyone always listen to Nika, follow her on her fasting shaman accounts on X, on TikTok, and be sure to keep an eye on her tips and tricks for a healthy lifestyle because she's got them. She's got it.
Thanks.
Yeah, baby.
Thanks for the
got
plug-in.
it.
But it is the
A
Carnivoire
little
Month.
XNS, everybody, to finish off the podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Your Venus.
And for the people that think this is a very expensive diet, it's not. When you compare what you spend in the grocery store for your cereals, cookies, breads, and lots of other laundry list, this is not expensive.
There is a couple things to be said about this, and it's important. One is that meat is one of the most expensive things you can find in the grocery store right now per like its weight. And you might be, and then you also hear at the same time that it's bad for you, right? The problem I see with that is that like, if it's so bad for you, why is it so damn expensive then?
Good point.
Another common sense thing where the cheapest food that you eat most often is like cheap cakes,
Cheap to make.
processed foods in the aisles, cereals, like tons of sugar in it, tons of additives. Additives are addictives. And
Also, a good way to look at it, when they take the dairy, for instance, from the cows, they promote skim milk as your best option for the milk, yet they take all the fat out and make a bunch of cheeses out of it. Cheeses that are very expensive. When you go to look for specialty cheeses, the Bries of the world, the European whatevers, cheeses, it's expensive.
100%.
And yet, fat is bad for you.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of gives you a different perspective on something that you've been told your whole life. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to bring these different perspectives and voices out there. And we want to bring them to the mainstream, like I as much as like my childhood kid is like, oh, Coca-Cola, they're not the enemy. It's like, yeah, they kind of are. It's hard to find value in anything that they provide right now. So what I think everything you're saying about the grocery store is super important. And if we can leave people with one lasting thought about food and shopping, is just to like keep your ingredients low and try and stick around the edges of the store. And the rest will kind of start to follow, I think. Like you can only find meat and certain things. Like you can't eat a lot of pasta on the edges of the grocery store.
And don't be afraid to experiment with different ideas of food. Just because some bubblehead on the TV says it's bad for you, don't believe it all the time.
There's a lot of ulterior motives out there in this world, and unfortunately a lot of default buttons. When certain PR releases come out, people are going to go to their standard operating procedures, and these are the same voices that we've had in our media and landscape for a long time that haven't moved the needle in the right direction on these issues when it comes to human health. And in fact, they're getting worse.
Yeah.
Our human health outcomes are getting worse, and we're taking more drugs than ever, more pills than ever, and this is just not how we feel mankind was meant to live. Humankind, whatever you want to call it. So when you go through the changes that we've gone through and you start to actually live those changes, it's very eye-opening, and it causes a lot of distrust in institutional knowledge and what is considered to be right or wrong when it comes to health and healthcare.
A lot of the institutions that you're talking about, they have been captured by greed. Their interest is greed, not your health. And it's a revolving door between the food industry and the big pharma industry and big ag.
The four horsemen: agriculture, food, pharma.
Well, you can throw a big
government.
Yeah. So four. Yeah, there you go. Apocalypse is coming.
Well, I know one thing that's coming, and that's another episode of the Kanika Lifestyle Podcast. There's also a hot episode of the Kanika Baseball Podcast in the works. In fact, there's two of them in the works because there's a big free agent that's going to sign this week, and we're breaking it all down. We're also going to give WWE Raw another chance and report back on how we feel about it. I think last week was like a huge missed opportunity for wrestling, to be honest, and I was left feeling disappointed. I'm going to give it one more chance because I want to see if, since it's not this big first episode, if it's more of a standard operating procedure and if it offers us any glimpse into what it's actually going to be like, or if it's still going to be a big snooze fest. And we got some other episodes in the works for you guys as well. So in the meantime, stay safe out there, stay warm. If it's cold in your part of the world, I hope the California wildfires get put out soon, and stay safe.
You can give us a like or follow. You can always subscribe so you get notified when something new comes up.
Exactly. We are going to be posting early and often this year, everybody. So make sure you don't miss a moment. Stick with us here. This was a good one. I like this episode.
All right.
Thank you, Nika. Have a good day, and you'll hear from us soon, everybody.
Bye.